You've probably heard about the man with superhuman strength, the one who tore lions apart, carried city gates on his shoulders, and brought down a temple with his bare hands. Yeah, that's Samson. But Samson's story? It's more than just muscles and miracles. It's about identity, purpose, failure, and a God who never gives up. So sit back, because part one of Samson's story is full of surprises and some lessons that hit way deeper than you think. Our story starts in ancient Israel. And to be honest, things weren't going great. God's people were living under the rule of the Philistines. They had wandered away from God. Again, there was no king, no real leader, just chaos, fear, and compromise. But God had a plan. In a quiet village, a woman who had never been able to have children was visited by an angel. Yes, a real angel. He said, "You're going to have a son." But not just any son. This boy would be set apart from the moment he was born. A Nazarite, chosen by God to deliver Israel from their enemies. The angel said, "No wine, no unclean food, and don't ever cut his hair." That boy was named Samson. From the moment Samson was born, something was different. The Spirit of the Lord began to stir in him while he was still young. He was strong, adventurous, and, well, a little impulsive. As he grew, so did his strength and so did his reputation. But here's where things get complicated. Samson didn't always make wise choices, especially when it came to love. One day, Samson saw a Philistine woman and immediately told his parents, "I want to marry her. She's the one." His parents were stunned. "Can't you marry someone from our own people?" But Samson was stubborn. "Get her for me. She pleases me." What no one realized was that God was going to use even Samson's flawed desires to begin stirring up conflict with the Philistines. So Samson and his parents headed down to arrange the marriage. On the way, something wild happened. A young lion jumped out at Samson, and in a moment of divine power, the Spirit of the Lord rushed over Samson and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands. He didn't tell anyone, not even his parents. Later, when he returned for the wedding, he saw the lion's carcass and inside it was a swarm of bees and honey. Gross, right? But Samson scooped some honey and ate it. He even gave some to his parents, but didn't mention the whole dead lion part. Why? Because touching a dead animal broke his Nazarite vow. See, Samson had the strength, but obedience, that part, was harder. At the wedding feast, Samson challenged the Philistines with a riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. He made a belief they could solve it. He'd give them 30 outfits. If not, they owed him. The Philistines couldn't figure it out, so they pressured Samson's new wife to get the answer out of him. She cried, begged, wore him down. Finally, he told her. She told them. They won the bet. And Samson? He was furious. He stormed off, went to another town, and killed 30 Philistines just to take their clothes and pay his debt. Then he left the wedding in anger. And his bride? She was given to someone else. That's just the beginning. A lion, a riddle, a wedding gone wrong, and a man who was supposed to save his people but couldn't even control his temper. And yet, God was still at work. Samson may have been unpredictable, impulsive, even reckless. But God hadn't given up on him. Let's recap Samson's story. Samson had just stormed away from his own wedding, furious that his wife had betrayed his secret to the Philistines. But when he cooled off and came back to visit her, he found out she'd been given to another man. Another man? Samson was livid. This time, I won't be blamed for what I do to them, he said. So what did he do? He caught 300 foxes, tied them together in pairs by the tail, attached a torch to each pair, lit them, and released them into the Philistine grain fields. Instant wildfire, literal chaos. The Philistines were furious. They blamed Samson's ex-bride and her father, and in a tragic turn, they were killed. Samson, heartbroken and raging, went to live in a cave. But the Philistines, wanted more revenge. They marched into Judah, where Samson's people lived, demanding that the Israelites hand him over. So 3,000 men from Judah found Samson and said, "Don't you realize the Philistines rule over us? What are you doing?" Samson answered, "I only did to them what they did to me." They tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him to the Philistines. But when the Philistines came shouting to meet him, something happened. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon Samson. The ropes fell from his hands like burnt thread, and he grabbed the closest thing he could find, a donkey's jawbone, and with it he struck down 1,000 Philistines. When it was over, Samson was exhausted. He cried out to God, "You gave me this great victory, but now I'm dying of thirst." And God split open a hollow place, and water flowed. Samson drank, and his strength returned. Samson went on to lead Israel for 20 years. But his story wasn't finished yet, because Samson still had a weakness. He was strong on the outside, but soft where it counted. And that's where Delilah comes in. Samson fell in love with a woman named Delilah. And just like before, the Philistines saw an opportunity. They approached Delilah and said, "Find out the secret of his strength, and we'll each give you a fortune." She agreed. So she asked Samson, "Tell me the secret of your strength." He played along, "If you tie me with 7 fresh bowstrings, I'll be as weak as any man." That night, she did just that, and then yelled, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He snapped the strings like they were thread. Delilah pouted, "You lied to me." So he gave her another fake answer, then another. Each time she tried it. Each time he broke free. But Delilah was persistent. She nagged. She pleaded. She wore him down day after day until his soul was tired. Finally, Samson gave in. "No razor has ever touched my head," he said. "I've been dedicated to God since birth. If my hair is cut, my strength will leave me." Delilah knew this time it was real. She put him to sleep on her lap, called for a man to shave off his hair, and the strength of Samson left him. "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke up thinking he could shake them off like before. But he didn't realize the Lord had left him. They captured him. They gouged out his eyes. And they threw him in prison to grind grain like an ox. It was one of the darkest chapters of Samson's life. Alone, blind, humiliated. But in that prison, something powerful was happening. His hair began to grow, and so did something else: his humility. In part 2, Samson's world came crashing down. Betrayed, captured, blinded, the strongest man in the Bible brought to his knees. But God wasn't done, because sometimes the most powerful moments of faith come after we've fallen. This is part 3 of Samson's story, and it just might be the most important chapter of all. When we last left him, Samson was in prison, grinding grain by hand, blind, humiliated. The mighty warrior who once led Israel now looked like a defeated man. But something had started to change in that prison. Not just his hair, his heart. Samson had lost everything. But in that silence, in the dark, he found something he'd missed before: dependence. You see, Samson had always been strong. He was used to winning, used to doing things his way. But now, he couldn't even see. And for the first time, Samson had to fully rely on God. He wasn't the leader anymore. He wasn't the hero. He was just a man. And sometimes, that's where healing begins. Meanwhile, the Philistines were throwing a massive party, a celebration in honor of their false god, Dagon. Thousands of people packed into the temple, the rulers, the wealthy, everyone who had wanted Samson gone. And then someone had an idea. "Bring out Samson. Let's mock him. Let's show off our victory." So they did. They brought him out in chains, led by a young servant boy. The crowd laughed. They cheered. They threw insults. Samson stood there silent, blind, alone. But his heart was different now. He turned to the boy who was guiding him. "Put my hands on the pillars," he said quietly. "Let me lean against them." The boy did. And Samson whispered a prayer. "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, strengthen me just once more, and let me die with the Philistines." Then, with everything he had left, Samson pushed. One pillar, then the other. And as the ground shook, the massive stone temple collapsed. The rulers, the people, the mocking voices, all silenced. Samson gave his life. And in his death, he defeated more enemies than he had during his life. It wasn't the ending anyone expected. Not a triumphant return, not a happy ever after. But it was powerful, and it was holy. Because in that moment, Samson finally understood. His strength had never been about him. It was always about the God who gave it. And when he leaned on God instead of himself, that's when he made the greatest impact. So what do we take from Samson's story? Was he flawed? Yes. Impulsive? Absolutely. But God still used him. Because God doesn't just work through the perfect, He works through the surrendered. Even in our weakness, even in our regret, He can still write a story of strength. Maybe you've made mistakes. Maybe you feel like your purpose is over. But it's not. Because if God can restore Samson, He can restore you. My power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12-9. Thank you for joining us on this 3-part journey through the life of Samson. Subscribe to Waters of Faith for more powerful Bible stories of redemption, courage, and the grace of a God who never gives up.